Welcome back to the Awakening with Kelvin Podcast, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of the challenges and opportunities facing Africa today. I'm your host, Kelvin Phiri, and today we continue our transformative series, Bridges to Prosperity. In our last two episodes, we confronted the issues of corruption and conflict of interest in Africa, two pervasive problems that have long hampered our development efforts and compromised our collective future. Today, we shift our focus to a solution that holds the key to Africa's success: patriotic leadership. Africa's leaders have the potential to transform the continent, but only when they put their nation's interests above their own. In this episode, we'll explore examples of global and African leaders who have exemplified patriotic leadership and driven rapid development in their countries. We'll also revisit Africa's own independence leaders, like Kenneth Kaunda, who laid the groundwork for what Africa could become. Part 1, Africa's independence leaders putting their countries first. Let's begin with the African leaders who led their countries to independence, visionary leaders who embodied patriotic leadership. These leaders placed their country's interests above personal gain and sought to build strong, united nations. One such leader is Kenneth Kaunda, the founding president of Zambia. Kaunda, or KK as he was affectionately known, played a pivotal role in Zambia's fight for independence from British colonial rule, which was achieved in 1964. Kaunda believed deeply in humanism, a philosophy that placed the welfare of the Zambian people at the center of governance. Kenneth Kaunda was a leader who led with compassion, integrity, and selflessness. He introduced free education for all, ensuring that Zambia's children, regardless of their background, had the opportunity to learn. He also supported anti-colonial movements across southern Africa, offering refuge and assistance to those fighting for freedom in Zimbabwe, Namibia, and South Africa. Kaunda's leadership was not just about Zambia. He was a firm believer in African unity and saw Zambia as part of a larger African story of liberation. In Kaunda's own words, our freedom will only be complete when all of Africa is free. Kaunda demonstrated that true patriotic leadership isn't limited to borders. It's about solidarity, service, and fighting for the collective good. Under his leadership, Zambia laid the foundations for nation building, even amidst challenges. Similarly, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana also exemplified patriotism in leadership. As the first African nation to gain independence, Ghana's freedom was a beacon of hope for the rest of the continent. Nkrumah didn't just want freedom from colonial rule, he wanted to transform Ghana into a modern, self-reliant state. His vision extended to all of Africa, advocating for Pan-Africanism and the economic and political unification of the continent. Then, of course, there's Nelson Mandela, whose journey from prison to presidency in South Africa demonstrated his commitment to national unity and reconciliation. Mandela could have chosen a path of vengeance, but instead, he put the interest of the nation first, prioritizing peace, justice, and development. Mandela's leadership inspired not only South Africans, but the entire world. Nelson Mandela, I have walked that long road to freedom. I have tried not to falter. I have made missteps along the way, but I have discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. Part 2, global examples of patriotic leadership and rapid development. Now let's look beyond Africa to see how patriotic leadership has transformed other nations in relatively short periods of time. One of the best examples is Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. When Lee became Prime Minister in 1959, Singapore was a small, struggling country with no natural resources. But Lee's leadership turned it into one of the most developed countries in the world. He focused on good governance, zero tolerance for corruption, and long-term economic planning. Lee's patriotic leadership ensured that the country's wealth was reinvested into the people through education, housing, and infrastructure. Another example is Paul Kagame of Rwanda. After the tragic genocide of 1994, Rwanda was on the brink of collapse. Kagame's leadership focused on rebuilding the nation, promoting good governance, and eradicating corruption. Today, Rwanda is recognized as one of the most developed and safest countries in Africa. Kagame's focus on accountability and national unity has been key to the country's transformation. Similarly, the late Meles Zenawi of Ethiopia helped transform the country from famine-stricken to one of Africa's fastest-growing economies. He prioritized infrastructure development, education, and poverty reduction, demonstrating that when leaders focus on the well-being of their people, real development can occur. In all these cases, these leaders did not prioritize personal wealth or power. Instead, they worked tirelessly to uplift their nations. This is the essence of patriotic leadership, leading with the people's best interests at heart and recognizing that national prosperity comes from serving the nation, not oneself. In Part 3, the need for patriotic leadership in Africa today. So, what does patriotic leadership look like in Africa today? As we reflect on the examples of Kenneth Kaunda and Nkrumah and global figures like Kuan, it's clear that patriotic leadership is about sacrifice, vision, and a commitment to long-term development. In today's Africa, there are leaders making strides toward development, but too many still put personal gain above the needs of their people. Corruption, mismanagement, and short-term thinking have led to missed opportunities for growth. But this can change, and it starts with the kind of leadership we choose to cultivate and support. See, imagine an Africa where leaders crack down on corruption and ensure that resources are used to benefit everyone. Prioritize education and healthcare to give future generations the tools they need to succeed. Lead with integrity, transparency, and a commitment to justice. This is not a distant dream, it is achievable. We've seen it happen in Rwanda, Ethiopia, and other places around the world. Africa can transform rapidly if we have patriotic leaders who are willing to lead by example and put the country first. We need leaders who are accountable to us, the people. Leaders who understand that power is a responsibility, not a privilege. Part 4 conclusion: a call for patriotism in leadership. As we look toward Africa's future, one thing is clear: Africa needs leaders who will prioritize the nation above all else. Leaders who will act with a sense of duty, who will fight for the well-being of every citizen, and who will work tirelessly to ensure that the continent's potential is fully realized. We as Africans must also hold our leaders accountable. We must support those who serve the people and challenge those who put personal interests ahead of national progress. Patriotic leadership is not just a call to those in government, it's a call to every African. Whether you're a teacher, a doctor, a farmer, or an entrepreneur, your leadership matters. Let's take inspiration from the likes of Kenneth Kaunda, Kwame Nkrumah, and Nelson Mandela and move forward with a renewed sense of purpose. Africa's path to development lies in the hands of leaders who are committed to the people, and that's something we all can demand and nurture. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Awakening. Together we can create an Africa where patriotic leadership drives development and prosperity for all. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in next week for more insights on the future of Africa. I'm Kelvin Phiri, and this has been the Awakening with Kelvin Podcast.